Rob from Gardner Professional Decorators. In this quick video I'm going to show you how we're going to hang a finished wallpaper to one of the large walls on a main staircase. Usually quite difficult for one reason, which is the height. However, if you're fairly competent in hanging wallpaper anyway in a standard room with standard height walls, this isn't really too much harder. You've got the height, which is a difficulty, and also the angles you have to take into account going down the staircase itself. So in this particular project, all the walls have already been stripped off that we need to paper. They've all been filled where the bad cracks and stuff were, and they've all been rubbed down, so they're nice and smooth and ready for the decoration. If I take you into the room where we're pasting up, doing a staircase is usually quite difficult where to put your paste table, because there's usually only spare bedrooms and stuff. We've managed to find a bit of spare room here in the main bedroom. And I'll run you through some of the tools and equipment that we're going to need today to actually carry out the job. The first one, of course, is your chosen wallpaper. Make sure you have enough of the same wallpaper that you're going to be using. You need to check over here your batch numbers to make sure they're all correct. Now again, if you're fairly competent of hanging wallpaper and have done so a few times before, you're already going to know this. You're already going to know to make sure you check the instructions inside to see what the soak time is. Make sure you follow them. I'm guessing without looking, these are probably about 5 to 8 minutes. And they're all the same. They're not damaged and they're all in good condition. When you're happy with the paper, you also need a spirit level. Now I've got a fairly nice long one for this particular job because they're nice long walls. Obviously I wouldn't use this if it was a shorter wall we would hang in paper on. I've got a straight edge for cutting on the tops and the bottoms of the papers. Because of this type of paper, it's fairly heavy duty. I'm going to be able to hopefully use my blade, and these are nice and sharp and you can snap them off when they start getting blunt. So I'll be using my blade to cut the tops and the bottoms. Also need a pair of scissors for when you're trimming after you've measured out, and if you are going around corners or awkward bits, sockets, the window, that sort of stuff, probably use the scissors for that. A pencil is always a good idea for then marking off your tops, your bottoms, any areas you want to cut or trim. Pencil. Good quality paper hanging brush. This one here I've had for quite a few years now. It's just starting to get a little bit worn on the tops of the bristles. Don't go and just get a really cheap £2 one from B&Q or no other DIY places. Get a decent, good quality one, and it will leave you a nicer finish. Standard tape measure. You're obviously going to need to measure your lengths of your drops. However, I probably won't use the tape measure because I use our measuring device. Unless you do a lot of paper hanging or you're in the trade, it's probably not worth investing in one of these. They're about £100, but they are really, really good. Basically, they're a laser measurer. It leaves you a little line there, and then when you measure, it gives you the distance. So it's really, really good for staircases. It's a laser measurer. Paste, we use Solvite. Again, there's other cheaper ones on the market, but I would definitely recommend getting the Solvite one. Paste, all mixed up in the bucket already. Follow the manufacturer's guidance on the paste and a decent paste brush. Some people will use a roller, which is fine, but I like to use a brush. And then you're also going to need a bucket of water, not too hot because that could cause problems with your paper drying out. Just warmish water, a clean cloth, and we've also got a sponge for wiping down the table afterwards. So you need a fair amount of equipment to do this job. You also need good access to the staircase, so a ladder, some steps, sometimes a plank is needed, and sometimes even a friend to help you out. But I'll be able to do this one on my own, and with minimal sort of planks and stuff. It's fairly easy from our point of view. So next stage now will be to measure up, to work out where each drop is going to fall, and then start pasting and hanging the paper. So I'll show you that next. Right, so our first stage we need to do is to work out where each drop is going to fall, because the last thing we really want is just to have a length about there and then a little tiny piece of paper we have to try and fit in that little gap. So this may take you a couple of attempts. I ideally would like to start the first one around here. Use your pencil just to mark off, because then that will give you enough space. So if we say about there, that will give you enough space for one drop in there, and likewise up there. So I'm just marking with a pencil where each drop will fall. Now the paper will expand a little bit when it's pasted, but not too much, so you don't need to worry about that. At the moment that's quite a nice distance between there and there. It's quite manageable. It's not too small, it's not too big. So I'll come on down as if this one now came and wraps around the corner. There's a little awkward bit there, but nothing too much to worry about. Go in there. Go on there. And then there's a section down here, but to be honest, again, that's not too bad. If it's anything less than an inch, it's quite awkward. So that's the method that we're going to go for. Our next stage will be just to run a spirit level from this one here, straight down, and then we can measure out and then start pasting and hanging the paper. A little tip for you on that. Right, I'm going to grab my spirit level. Again, this is the awkward bit really, because it's the highest bit, but it's the bit that if you get it out of the way and done, then it's simple. So I'm going to go to that line that I made earlier with the papers that I just marked out. And I'm just going to get the spirit level nice and straight, and then draw a light pencil mark. Don't go too dark, because if you're going to hang a light paper, you'll see the lead come through the joins. So do it as light as you can. Just while we're talking about joins and marks and stuff, don't be tempted to follow the last paper that was hung. You'll sometimes see where the last paper was hung. Don't be tempted to follow that, because it's not always to say that it was done correctly, unless it was you that did it the first time, of course. So there's no need to really go all the way down. On a wall like this, you can just go about halfway down, because as soon as you start the paper off going plumb down the wall, straight down the wall, it's then going to continue that way. So as long as you've got that first bit nice and straight, that's going to be good enough to hang. So now what we need to do is measure the first length. Now if you're not really experienced or competent in what you're doing, just measure each length at a time. There's no need to race it. So I'm just going to put a little mark just to be sure, for the purposes of this video, where this is going to drop, which is going to be there. So I'm going to have one length that comes down here like this, and then this length here. Now this length here is going to be the first one that I hang. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out that way, and then once that's done, I'm going to start from here and then carry on that way. So this is my first one, and out of this bit here is the longest section. So I want to measure from there. So where a lot of people go wrong on staircases is they measure the wrong side, they then hang it, and their paper ends about there, and that bit's short. So always make sure you measure and then cut from the longest section. This is where this measuring device comes in really useful. If you haven't got one and you've only got a tape measure, you might need another pair of hands to help you out. But that's measured there at 163 inches. So I'll cut that at 165 inches just to make sure I've got a bit of extra cut on the tops and the bottoms. Once I've done that, I can then make sure the pattern's correct, and I can continue the same process, because that will then fall to there, measure that one, which will probably be about 150 something, let's just double check. There we go, 155, so I'll probably cut that at 157, and likewise going that way. So you then just carry on the same process until you're all done. I'll catch up with you again when I'm near the window. Cheers. Okay, so if you imagine this is our wall that we're hanging from, we've got the left corner section there, and then we're going to go along and we'll, let's say, have the window up here somewhere. So imagine that. We're now going to go to the left. So before we hang this one on the wall, the easiest way to make sure you have the pattern is just by laying this one out. We know that's the top edge because the flowers, and then just rolling it up until you find the next pattern, which is there. Now, excuse me, put the camera and do this at the same time. So there's the next pattern. You can see that it joins that flower down there. That all matches up. That matches up. Fine. So we want to then put a pencil mark up here to say that's where we're going to cut next. So we can cut that then. We can measure out to the 157, I think it was, inches. Measure that and paste that. And then while we're hanging this one, this one can be soaking. So we've always got one soaking as we're hanging the other, which will speed up the process pretty quick. Right, we've now got to the point, all the left hand side of it is now completed. We've now got to an awkward point with measuring this length here. Because if I was to measure it from the ceiling just down to the bottom of the skirt in here, it wouldn't then take into account this little triangle bit. So what I'm going to do first is just double check where this next drop's going to fall, which is there. And then I'm just going to get my spirit level. And it doesn't matter really whereabouts you do this, but just put a semi-straight line, doesn't have to be perfect, along like so. And then what we're going to do is, using your chosen measuring device, measure from that line up like so. That's 132 inches. And then from where the bottom is here, follow that up like that. And again, you can just do this just as easy with a normal tape measure. And that is 51 inches. So that's going to give us a total of 184 cut. Add in the couple for your cutting at the bottom, I'll probably make that 186. So that's the easiest way to do that, especially if you've got quite a long area like this. You could do that all the way along, and you're going to get the correct measurement the first time, every time. There we go. Okay, so here we are now at the end of the job. It took about 2.5 hours to completely hang all the finished wallpaper, and it used 3 rows. Everything went to plan. As you can see, it was all nicely cut in on the bottoms by using that straight edge, and likewise on the top. When you do yours, don't worry if you do tend to see some of the joint marks immediately afterwards. Sometimes they do take a good couple of hours to fully dry out, and just keep an eye on any bubbles and that, and if you see any of those, you can brush them out as you're going. But that's it basically. I'm Rob from Gardner Professional Decorators. If you've got any questions, please feel free to contact me. Don't forget to like the video and please subscribe. Cheers, bye.